The courtroom fell into a stunned silence as an unexpected name was called to the witness stand: Jada Pinkett Smith. Known for her career in film, entrepreneurship, and her high-profile marriage to actor Will Smith, Jada took a deep breath before facing the jury. What she was about to reveal was not only surprising, it was chilling. She claimed that in 2004, Sean "Diddy" Combs had invited her to a private meeting where he presented her with a document he called a loyalty agreement. According to her, it wasn't a business contract or partnership proposal. It was something much darker, a pact demanding silence and compliance. When she refused to sign it, Jada said Diddy looked her directly in the eye and warned, "You'll regret it in the next life." Her words sent shockwaves through the courtroom. The atmosphere had already been tense when the bailiff called Jada's name. Audible gasps rippled through the room. Even the prosecution appeared caught off guard, hinting that this might have been a last-minute decision, possibly initiated by Jada herself. Dressed in a somber black suit, she walked in with a steady gaze, placed her hand on the Bible, and addressed the court. "I understand this is unusual," she began, "but I can't stay silent anymore." What followed became one of the most explosive moments of the trial. Jada, widely known for her openness and activism, confessed she had been harboring a buried secret for nearly 20 years, an alleged loyalty pact presented to her by Diddy. She explained that she had been quietly following the trial, watching each testimony unfold. As she heard various assistants and collaborators describe moments of coercion, strange paperwork, and veiled threats, something within her shifted. Suddenly, the document she had once brushed off as just creepy Diddy behavior took on a more sinister meaning. "I don't need protection anymore," she told the court. "What I need is to tell the truth. Because back then, I saw the tip of something I didn't understand. But now, I see the whole iceberg." Her words visibly shook Diddy, who stared at her from the defense table. His attorneys quickly objected, calling her testimony irrelevant, but the judge overruled them. "If what she says aligns with other testimonies, it could speak to a pattern," the judge ruled. Jada steadied herself, then began recounting the story that would soon dominate headlines. The meeting took place in 2004 at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. She'd been invited under the pretense of discussing a philanthropic project, something that would merge music, activism, and community work. "It sounded normal," she said. "It sounded like something Diddy would pitch." When she arrived, he was alone, dressed in all white, jazz playing softly from a Bose speaker. The room was dimly lit, curtains drawn. He offered her a glass of champagne, which she declined. He was calm. Weirdly calm, she recalled, like he had rehearsed the whole thing. After a few minutes of conversation, Diddy excused himself and walked behind the suite's small bar. From beneath it, he pulled out a sleek black leather folder and handed it to her without saying a word. Inside, she found what he called a spiritual agreement. Jada said she was immediately unsettled by the language. It was cryptic, filled with abstract references to loyalty, discretion, and spiritual bonding. It was unlike anything she'd seen before. When she expressed hesitation, Diddy's demeanor shifted slightly, and he issued the quiet but ominous warning, "You'll regret it in the next life." That moment, Jada said, haunted her for years. But now, seeing the scope of the allegations against him, she realized it wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a deeply rooted system of manipulation and control. Jada Pinkett Smith told the court she initially believed what Diddy handed her was a contract or a pitch deck, something to review for a potential collaboration. But the title at the top read, "Loyalty Agreement," and the moment she saw it, she sensed something was off. At first, she laughed nervously and joked, "What is this, some kind of hip-hop Scientology thing?" But Diddy didn't laugh. He just nodded slowly and said, "It's protection for both of us." The folder contained a typed, 7-page document with no legal letterhead, no indication it had come from a law firm. Still, Jada described it as terrifying in tone. It wasn't about business. It demanded something far deeper and darker. The clauses were unnerving. They spoke of eternal discretion, not just about professional dealings, but personal matters as well. There were references to alignment with the inner circle, and disturbingly, phrases like submission of the soul to the greater good of the legacy. To Jada, it didn't feel like a modern NDA. It felt ancient, like some kind of pact. She claimed it made vague references to unnamed individuals, ritualistic expectations, and ominous consequences for betrayal. The document never asked for money or creative control. It demanded silence, obedience, and lifelong, even after lifelong, compliance. At the end, there was a signature line with her name already typed in. "I felt sick," she said. "I felt like I was being recruited for something I didn't understand." She handed the folder back and told Diddy, "No." That, she said, is when the energy in the room changed. Jada told the court she no longer has the original document. It mysteriously disappeared from her home years ago, but she remembers entire phrases by heart. "That's how much it haunted me," she said. She began paraphrasing some of the language aloud. One clause read, "The undersigned agrees to uphold confidentiality not only in this life but in all spiritual transitions thereafter." Another stated, "Any knowledge gained in sacred space shall remain sacred, never to be uttered in earthly court, church, or public sphere." Jada remembered responding with nervous disbelief. "Are you telling me this contract follows me after I die?" she asked. Diddy looked her dead in the eye and replied, "You're starting to get it." There were references to a hierarchy of silence, and levels of access to sacred knowledge that could only be unlocked through loyalty. The document mentioned tests, gatherings, and a repeated, undefined phrase, the selection. One part read, "To break silence is to break the bond. Breaking the bond carries consequences, divine and otherwise." At this point, the courtroom was silent. Some jurors looked unsettled. Spectators were visibly shaken. Jada made it clear she hadn't been under the influence of any substances during that meeting. "This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a publicity stunt," she said. "He fully believed in this document, and he believed I would eventually sign it. But she didn't." And that's when she said Diddy gave her the chilling warning that would stay with her for years, "You'll regret it in the next life." She told the jury that although she left the suite that day physically untouched, something had followed her. She carried the weight of that encounter like a shadow. After she refused to sign, she described the room's energy shifting again, suddenly, heavily. The music stopped. Diddy's face changed. Gone was the charisma and calm. His expression hardened as he leaned forward. His voice dropped, slow and deliberate, as if he were repeating a phrase he had memorized long ago. And though she walked away that day, she felt she had brushed against something deeply unsettling, something she still didn't fully understand, but could no longer ignore. He looked at me and said, "You'll regret it in the next life." "Not this one." "The next," Jada Pinkett Smith told the courtroom, her voice steady but laced with unease. She clarified that she didn't know whether Diddy was threatening her with physical harm or speaking in metaphysical terms. "It felt like a curse," she said, "like he believed he had the power to reach into something eternal." The courtroom fell into an eerie silence again. When the prosecutor asked if she had taken that threat seriously, Jada responded without hesitation, "Absolutely, because it wasn't a joke to him." And suddenly, it wasn't a joke to me. Diddy didn't just issue a cryptic warning. He began calmly listing what would happen if she chose to defy him. He said roles would vanish, projects would mysteriously collapse, producers would stop returning her calls, and even friends might begin distancing themselves, for their own safety. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even touch me. "But it was the scariest moment I've had in Hollywood," Jada testified. Then he smiled again, that same rehearsed, smug grin, and told her, "Just think it over. You'll see. Everyone always comes back." Jada left the hotel suite without saying goodbye. She didn't look back. But as she reached her car, she realized she was trembling so badly she could barely insert the key into the ignition. "I had seen a side of him I wasn't supposed to see," she said. "And that's when I knew, whatever this thing is that he's running, it's bigger than just parties and rumors." After the encounter in 2004, Jada made the decision to remain silent, not because she was complicit, but because she was terrified. She admitted to the court that the fear became a constant, like a shadow that never left her side. She would walk into industry events and quietly scan the room, wondering who else had been offered the same loyalty agreement. She looked for clues, the same black folder, the same cryptic language, the same hollow stare she had seen in Diddy's eyes that day. Over time, she began noticing a disturbing pattern. Women with once promising careers seemed to vanish. Some never gave interviews again. Others remained within Diddy's orbit, clearly uncomfortable in public photos or footage, yet seemingly unable to leave. It was like they were trapped in something they couldn't speak about, Jada said. And I realized I had just barely escaped. But escaping didn't bring peace. Jada described recurring nightmares, the constant feeling of being watched, and phone calls from blocked numbers where the voice on the other end said nothing at all. Just breathe, she started journaling, desperate to process the fear. But eventually, even the journal felt unsafe. She burned it out of fear it might be discovered. I didn't even tell Will, she confessed. Not for years. I couldn't explain it. I didn't want him to think I was paranoid. Everything resurfaced the moment the trial began. When she heard testimonies from former assistants and dancers describing NDAs, coercion, veiled threats, and unsettling spiritual language, it was like hearing echoes of her own past. That's when I knew it wasn't just me, she told the jury. That's when I realized I wasn't crazy. He was doing this to everyone. Her decision to testify didn't come easily. She knew it would open old wounds, attract intense media scrutiny, and potentially put her in danger again. But this time, she said, the silence felt heavier than the risk. I used to think staying quiet would protect me, Jada said.